Ching the Chu was awakened by a violent bump. He opened his eyes, and his eyes were dark and covered with old wind of wood. He was still confused and he was stunned. He immediately woke up, but he was shocked to find that his arm was firmly tied by the rope. Tied up behind him, the ankle was tied with a knot, which made him unable to move now. It was dark, and there was no starlight. Only the dimly lit streetlights reflected the surrounding scene, letting him see that he was being tied in the rear compartment of a truck. The truck was driving fast on a quiet road, both sides of the road. It's the woods, there's no smoke, the truck seems to be a mountain road and is heading for the mountain. In recent days, there have been many cases of vicious homicides in the city. The preliminary judgments of the police are carried out by the same murderer. The murderer's method of committing crimes is extremely cruel. The victims are cruelly tortured during their lifetime. Organs, limbs and reproduction. Organs have different degrees of loss. The police are now trying to detect the case. The public is also reminded to pay attention to personal safety and minimize travel at night. The broadcast inside the car came on and off. With the sound of the rumble, Ching the Chu was very confused. I didn't know what happened. It was obvious that he was just in the dorm room and the roommates were black, but suddenly felt sleepy and woke up again. I found myself on the truck. This is not that he is dreaming, he can be sure, because all senses are true now. But if this is not a dream, how did he come here? A few seconds ago, he was still in the dormitory. How suddenly did he come to this deep forest and was tied to a truck? Everything happened too suddenly, and Ching the Chu's brain was in a mess, and it took a while to reluctantly accept the current situation. Although he didn't know what was going on, he was probably kidnapped in the situation that he was tied up. If he didn't do anything, then there must be more terrible things waiting for him. He must escape. Dong dong //. In the heavy sound and shaking of the truck, Ching the Chu suppressed his fear, observed the body, and finally found a tilted iron sheet, so he moved desperately to the position, grinding the back with the sharp edge of the iron. Hemp rope, faster! Hurry up! The temperature in the mountains is very low at night, but in the blink of an eye, the beginning of the journey is full of sweat. He clenches his teeth and endures the strong soreness to move back and forth, so that the hemp rope and the edge of the iron sheet are repeatedly rubbed. About 10 minutes later, Ching the Chu felt that he had never experienced such a long time. As the hemp rope was gradually cut, he struggled a few times and finally succeeded in letting the hemp rope tied to him fall off his body. Call! Ching the Chu was already tired at this time, his arm was sore, but he didn't dare to delay the time. He quickly relieved the hemp rope that tied his feet, and then touched his body. Otherwise, the mobile phone and wallet were gone. It must have been taken away by the people in front. If you can, Ching the Chu now wants to jump in and out of the car, but even this impulse cannot be realized. Although the truck compartment is open air, it is surrounded by iron fences, which are used to transport livestock. The fence was so strong that he could not escape the railing. The only way is to open the door behind. Ching the Chu climbed over with his hands and feet and anxiously slammed the lock on the fence door, but the lock was very strong, and the key was kept. The keyhole was small, not to mention that there was no wire. Even if he had it, he would not use the wire to open the keyhole. One type of technology has been tossed for a long time, and the lock on it remains untouched. Ching the Chu was so anxious that he was cold. At this time, he began to consider that if he could not escape, he might choose to cooperate with the kidnappers. After all, the other party should kidnap him for the money. As long as he is obedient, he may still guarantee his safety. However, at this time, there was a faint smell in his nose. The truck slowed down, the lights in front, and the car slowly drove into a spacious yard, and the blood smell in the air became more and more intense. There are large pieces of blood scattered on the ground, old and new, some are brownish red, and some still maintain a moist bright red. Ching the Chu squatted and subconsciously thought that this is a livestock slaughterhouse, but once again see the scene in front. At the time, his face suddenly became pale. On the ground not far from the front of the car, the body of a young woman was parked. The expression of the body was awkward and painful. The skin was already rotted and the limbs were twisted. The chest was cut neatly from the chest to the lower abdomen, revealing the ribs of the white flowers. The internal organs are missing, and they have a strong smell of odor. The fly worms are flying on the rotten meat. Seeing this horrible scene, Ching the Chu's legs were soft. Sitting in the car, his face was cold and sweaty. He grabbed his mouth and almost spit it out. He suddenly remembered the broadcast that he had just heard, and realized that his situation was worse than he had just thought about it. It was not an ordinary kidnapper, but a perverted murderer. If he could not escape, he would only wait for him. A dead end. The alarm bell in Ching the Chu's heart is crazy, his mind is almost blank, and he has only one thought left in his head. He can be confused with his thinking. He is shuddering, and every muscle is extremely stiff, and he can't even make the simplest movement. Hey dong dong. At this time, the truck stopped at the center of the courtyard, the door was forced to close, and the ground with the stone bricks was filled with heavy footsteps, which alerted Ching the Chu, who was caught in a deep panic, and restored him a little rational. Only one person's footsteps should be the driver. It's possible that there is only one person in the car, that is, a murderer, but he does not rule out his accomplices in the buildings in the yard. These thoughts flashed in Ching the Chu's mind, but he didn't have time to think deeply about it. He immediately hid the cut rope behind him, and returned to his initial position, closed his eyes, and endured his inner heart. Trembling, pretending to be in a coma, hoping to let the other person relax and be alert, he can find a chance to get out. Hey, hey! A black shadow slowly moved under the pale light. This terrible footstep was like stepping on the heart of Ching the Chu. The fingers hidden behind him suddenly tightened, and they tried their best to suppress their breathing too fast, did not expose the fact that he is still awake. The black shadow went to the front of the fence door. Ching the Chu opened a blind eye and peeked. The heart suddenly stunned. The driver's body was even stronger than he had imagined. He was nearly 2 meters tall and his body was raised like a brown bear. As long as one hand can easily kill him, how to run this? Ching the Chu was a little embarrassed. At this time, the driver opened the fence door with the key and jumped into the car with the fence. When the car came up, the whole body suddenly sank. Seeing that the driver was approaching himself, Ching the Chu's nerves were already tense, and they couldn't hold back. They suddenly jumped up and ran away from the gap on the driver's side, trying to slip away. He thought that the driver was huge and the reaction would be slow, and such a small space could not immediately turn to chase him, but he did not think that the other party did not have to turn around, but directly slapped back and hit him. The head made him suddenly dizzy. His body soft and fell straight down. Is over. This is the last thought of Ching the Chu before the coma. When I woke up again, Ching the Chu almost couldn't open his eyes, because the white light in front of him was too glaring, and then he found that the touch behind him was hard and seemed to be close to the wall. For a moment, I knew that I was still in the dormitory. Everything before was just a nightmare that he experienced, but I still had to wait for him to relax, still strong stun, and the smell around him told him that he's still in the place just now, and he could feel that his wrist and ankle were all wrapped in a metal ring. He was copied to a wall. At this moment, suddenly something warm on his face, it was from another person's finger. Ching the Chu, who had no psychological preparation, suddenly screamed, although he immediately regretted it, but also unable to install Dizzy. I had to open my eyes with trepidation. In some blurry and distorted sights, he saw a man's hand with a clear joint, fair complexion and long, powerful fingers. He was a very good-looking hand. The hand was slowly moving down, gently touching his cheek, and then Ching the Chu's ear rang a beautiful and smiling voice. "You're awake." Ching the Chu trembled, his vision finally returned to normal, and the hand was also moved down, revealing the true content of this person. Looking at the other side's appearance, Ching the Chu briefly slammed for a moment, because the man standing in front of him was unexpectedly young. His posture was very slender, his eyebrows were neat and handsome, he was looking at him with a smile, and his smile on his lips was exceptional. Soft? If his pale skin is stained with blushing blood, and the other hand is holding a scalpel that drops blood, looking at his horrible eyes, Ching the Chu may think that he is a good person. However, at this moment, the strange, deep and hot eyes of the other side glanced around the whole body. Ching the Chu felt that his blood was frozen. He could feel that the man's gaze seemed to be looking at some novel and precious plaything, instead of looking at a living person. Even if the man's appearance is no harm to humans and animals, Ching the Chu can understand that the previous driver is just an accomplice, and the man in front is the real perverted murderer. He is likely to die in the other's hands and will die very badly. Your face is very unsightly, does it feel uncomfortable? The handsome man frowned slightly, and seemed to be worried about his condition. The movement carefully touched the pale cheeks of Ching the Chu, but it caused the more trembling of Ching the Chu. "I am sorry, I didn't expect my men to be rough with you and hurt you." The man's tone was full of apologies, and he leaned over and kissed Ching the Chu's forehead slightly, breathing hot and whispering against his ear. "You should feel very painful, I am sorry, and I am touched by someone other than me. Is it disgusting?" "What is other than you? Obviously you are the most disgusting one." Suddenly, such a metamorphosis was inexplicably kissed. In addition to the aversion to the cold, Ching the Chu felt sick and angry. The swearing words almost blurted out, but his eyes moved and suddenly saw the things piled up on the ground, but instantly stunned. Eyes, screaming in horror, it was a pile of rotten meat, with the bones of white flowers mixed in it, and the pieces of cloth mixed with a dead head in the top. The appearance was the driver, and his face remained a frightened expression. Not long ago was still a perpetrator, but now it has been split into a pile of raw meat. The handsome man smiled and said, "He is also very sorry for you. In order to apologize to you, he volunteered to become this appearance." His tone was light and dark, but it made Ching the Chu's reason completely collapsed. He was afraid to start tears in his eyes, although he knew that this might make the murderer more excited, but it is one thing. When this moment really comes, he has no control over his instinctive reaction. He cried with tears and prayed, "I will not tell anyone here, please, let me go, don't kill me. Don't be afraid." The man raised his hand and wiped the tears from his eyes. He was still gentle and even kissed his wet eyes. But the blood-stained scalpel was quietly attached to Ching the Chu's neck. The sharp blade instantly cut a thin blood line. I didn't want to kill you. I just want to eat every piece of your flesh and blood, so that you will always be with me. Because? I love you so much. The pain of the blade piercing the skin became more and more vivid. Ching the Chu didn't know why he was suddenly loved by a pervert, but he was so unclear. He had closed his eyes desperately, ready to accept reality. A strange voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Do you want to live? Do you want to escape from here and return to the world that you belonged to? I certainly want to. Who would be willing to die in the hands of a perverted murderer? Ching the Chu thought that this was his own auditory hallucination, and he could seek for life. Hope overwhelmed all reason and made him answer without thinking. He thought he was shouting, but he suddenly found himself answering the voice in consciousness. Very good, since you want to live, then I will tell you how to live. See this handsome guy in front of you. Now, kiss him, kiss him, kiss him, give him love, yell at his lips with your tongue, so you can survive. Ching the Chu. Why did he die, and his auditory hallucinations were so humiliating? Plus? Diary Middle. Part 1. I feel that he entered the game. This time I will not lose him again.